the hell?
No, it's Pearsall.
No?
Ricky Pearsall. We got a cover boy. We got a cover boy.
That's even worse.
Oh my God.
That's even worse.
Pearsall. Okay, yeah, good player. I think the player is not going to be the problem, especially when you're looking to draft a receiver. If you're taking a top 15 receiver in this class, you're going to be fine. I think that's just the way it is. You're going to get a starter. The question obviously was, when was he selected and who else was on the board? There were a couple of players that I had first round selections or first round grades that were still on the board. Adonai Mitchell obviously was the main one at receiver, where it felt like he would have been a perfect fit alongside alongside Brandon Ayuk. Right now, though, with Pearsall on the team, that's a good player. 49ers are going to find ways to use him. The question now to me becomes on day 2. 1, how aggressive are the 49ers? Are they going to stay at 63? Are they going to try and start trading up after staying put at 31? And what position do they ultimately target in the second and third round? That's kind of the questions that I now have. And then the second part of it is, what happens with Deebo Samuel? John Lynch had the chance to shut down any trade opportunity, and he said, we're not going to hold, no trade is out of the window, even though he said that they like both players. It's the normal coach talk or whatever, but I would not be surprised now if you see more trade talk getting entertained. That's what happens between days. Teams like the Buffalo Bills have already been connected to potentially getting a guy like Deebo Samuel. That would fill a need for them. You don't pay that much. The 49ers obviously absorb a good amount of the cap hit. There's only you have 2 years left on that deal. It's a good deal, and you could go a different position if you were Buffalo, if you get a guy like Deebo Samuel. So I think that there are a couple of things. Ultimately, I think this is an all right pick, not the best pick. I would probably give this grade of a C.
I'm surprised you give it a C because I'm around that range too. But just to talk about the player is a good player. Like Rohan said, he's probably going to be successful with the 49ers. It's just the fact that when you're looking at things, you could have gotten better in a certain spot, and I still think you could have gotten Ricky Pearsall in the second round with the trade up or even at 63. Now, this is a very deep class, so getting the 10th best receiver is still a win because of how deep the class is. Where I'm confused is if this is to replace Deebo, why haven't you learned from your mistake in the past where, for example, they traded away Buckner to replace him with Javon Kinlaw? You're going to do, essentially, if you do trade Deebo this year, which may happen, may not, but I think he'll be gone before the start of next year. So if you do trade him within the next year or two, essentially this pick was a future pick in a way to replace Deebo. So still, you're replacing him with an older guy. He turns 24 in September, which you do get a guy in his prime until 29. But this isn't a guy you extend after this first contract. So it's like, what's the roster building method here? What are we doing for long term? Okay, cool. He's on the team 4 years. When he wants a contract extension at year 4, you don't extend him because he's 29 already. That's where it's like, all right, what are we doing? Because you could have got a younger receiver in Adonai Mitchell. You could have gotten a corner, defensive tackle. To me, it's more just mind blowing the fact that they went receiver with, well, not necessarily receiver, but Ricky Pearsall rather than the other guys. Now, I do like the fit, and I've said this for a couple of past couple of shows. I want the Niners to change their philosophy to go more pass heavy. I want them to put the ball in Brock. If you trust Brock Purdy, put the ball in his hands more. Go away from the old school 60-40 run style offense or 50-50 run style offense that Kyle likes to run. Put the ball in his hands. Let's change the philosophy. In order to win a Super Bowl, you have to be a little more pass heavy, and you have to have a secondary that could slow the top quarterbacks in the AFC down, which they have too many of them. So that's what I do like, because it does point to, you know what, the Niners have more of a deep threat, which Ricky Pearsall is a better receiver in terms of receiving ability than Deebo. So I don't mind that part, but it's, for me, it's just confusing. Like, that's more so that would be my spot, confusing. I give the pick a C+. It gets a C+ because of the player. The reason why it's not a B minus, whatever, is because of the draft spot. I don't agree with the draft spot, but I like the player. I'm not saying I don't like the player. I think he could do phenomenal stuff in Kyle's offense. It's just not at 31, man.
Can anybody go to Twitter and confirm this? I'm curious.
He did.
Did anybody see it?
It's a JPA football. They reposted. He reposted that the 49ers are more likely to trade Deebo Samuel than they are to trade Brandon Ayuk per Mike Silver. He reposted it on his Instagram, and it's like a heart. It's like him like throwing up the heart that he had. I don't know if you remember that picture from Deebo. So he's throwing up the heart, and I don't know if it's him saying like, "Oh, they're getting rid of me," but he's just reposting that they're more likely to trade him.
He reposted him potentially getting traded, which is wild.
Yeah, so which is wild. And remember, he's the one who said he's toyed with the 49er fan base in the past, saying like you guys are gullible and something like that. Like you guys take everything, blow it up. It could be just him messing with the fan base. But hey, it's teams are calling on him, so it's kind of weird.
Well, this isn't exactly a boat of anything positive. He's like the worst in the world when it comes to receivers. Dude couldn't draft a receiver to save his life, dude. It's absolutely insane. Okay.
All right.
Final thoughts on Pearsall. I'll get to the super chats in a minute. I give it a C+. Again, the player is a good player. I like the player. The player makes sense. When you look at what he does well, he's a 49er. Good route runner, blocker, all the things, tough. You love that. As Marco pointed out, by the time his contract is done, if you pick up the 5th-year option, you're talking about a 28-year-old player. So you're talking about an older player. Remember, this is a guy who played with Brandon Ayuk in college at some point, okay? The guy that is now 4 years into his career and you're trying to extend. This man played with him. So he'll be 28 when you go to sign the second contract. So he's probably not going to get a second contract, which makes this interesting because part of the reason that you argue for him in round 1 is, oh, the 5th-year option before you have to sign him. You're probably not going to sign him at 28. Like you're probably getting the 5 years max, assuming he pans out, and that's it. And then he's going somewhere else. So that's not an argument for me. The ultimate situation that I have here is that I believe that there were players, not even at wide receiver. I'll argue and say, yes, I did like other players that are wide receivers a little bit better, but I could be completely wrong on that. There are other players, though, and again, could be completely wrong on this, but there are other players at other positions of need that I felt are first-round players and much more worthy of that pick. That's my opinion. And lastly, if truly this was a guy you couldn't live without, at pick 32, you had the Panthers trade up and go to 32. That means they were more than willing to go to 31 and give you roughly the same deal. You could have at least picked up a 4th-round pick and gotten the same exact player 2-3 picks later, and then package that pick with pick 63 and gone after another player that you really covet in this draft. So for those reasons, that's why I give it a C+. The only reason I'm not giving it a worse grade is because I actually like the player. I think the player is fine. I just think it was a reach at that position. That's me personally.
No, it's Pearsall.
No?
Ricky Pearsall. We got a cover boy. We got a cover boy.
That's even worse.
Oh my God!
That's even worse.
Silver,
Are you-
Silver? No,
Pearsall.
no. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this, guys.
I'm glad I'm wrong.
No. Listen to this. Mike Silver reported to Gene, and then he said, "I got it wrong," and it's another Cabo boy. It's Pearsall. We were sleight of hand.
So
I had
what's
one
crazy is, did Mike Silver have the same thing?
Yeah. So Mike
That's
Silver
crazy.
says, like Ricky the dog before, he says, "I've got a Cabo boy for you." Nope, I've got
Wow.
a different Cabo boy for you. We've got Cabo boys everywhere. Cabo boys.
That's a major reach, bro. Major.
I'm
like
going to be totally honest. This is not going to be a beautiful article. I did not have Pearsall graded as a top 2-round receiver. I don't know where you had him, David. Where did you have him?
I have Ricky
I want to know
Pearsall
who.
as a top 50 player. Okay. I have Ricky Pearsall as a guy that I really, and you know me, I've been joking and I'm not a shill. You asked me, so I'm going back to what I've said about him early in the process. Ricky Pearsall is a guy
FYI, I know it doesn't matter. Bills are trading back again. So they're moving back twice.
So it turns out I didn't know anything about A.D. Mitchell. And the 49ers have, again, kept things to their close to their vest.
Wow. So Mike Silver had the same thing.
Had the same thing you did. You guys both heard the same thing. It's
That's
Ricky
crazy.
freaking Pearsall. Are you kidding me, dude?
That's a terrible pick. I'm sorry. Like, there's no other way to put it.
Damn,
I
this is
don't-
this
I-
is not good.
That's
This is
but
not good at all.
that is a replacement for Deebo Samuel.
No, it's not.
I think
No,
that
it's-
is.
No, it's not.
I honestly, I don't think it is. I don't.
I-
I don't view him as a replacement for
Ricky Pearsall
for
is
Deebo.
not a Deebo Samuel player. Ricky Pearsall actually, look, here's the
They're
thing.
not. No, but the thing is, the Niners aren't looking for the gadget guy. They're looking for a receiver.
He's
to
not a
replace Deebo.
gadget guy. Ricky Pearsall is
No,
a
I'm not
legit
saying-
receiver.
No, I'm not saying that. That's exactly what I'm saying. They're not. It's not a gadget guy. They're legit going receiver to replace Deebo Samuel.
And
Like, that's what it is.
Is
Panthers
this one of
have
the
traded
biggest
up-
reaches though of the first round
No,
Yes.
of any
no,
team?
second.
I think this is a
second,
top 5
behind-
reach.
no.
No,
It's a
no.
top
I
three
think
reach.
Penix was a reach.
Two
I think Knicks
quarterbacks
was a
and a-
reach. After
and a
that,
miss.
where
Guys,
else? I think this is the
guys,
third biggest reach
Ricky,
of the entire
Ricky
draft so far.
Pearsall, listen, I'm not saying I like the pick. I've told you I wouldn't want this. I know he is a consensus on most people's boards in the 40s at 31.
Panthers are on the clock.
I'm just saying that's not that much of a reach at 31. It's not. It's
Panthers have
not.
taken Leggett, I'd assume. Leggett or McConkey? I would assume Leggett, though. Wow.
Here's the thing.
Dude,
I
what
don't
are we
know.
doing?
But
I don't
Jesse and
know.
Marco, you know me. You know I'm not going to cap for Cabo. Here's the thing, though. Ricky Pearsall is a good football player.